If you've considered buying a home, you might have heard the phrase title insurance, and you might have wondered what that means. So title insurance is a type of insurance policy that protects whoever the policy holder happens to be against loss. And why might they have loss? Well, there might be defects in the title. And I'm just going to jump right into an example and give you an idea how this might work, so it's a little less abstract. Let's say that this is you over here, and you want to purchase the house from the seller. Right? You want to purchase this home, and so you give, let's just make this really simple. Let's just say you give $150,000 cash. You've got a lot of cash laying around. You don't need a lender. So you give that cash to the seller, and then what does the seller give you? Well, they give you the house, right? Well, what does that even mean? It means that they give you title to the house, right? So a house has a title, right? Just like a car has a title, right? And whoever has the title, if it's in their name, that's who owns the house, right? So this seller is giving you title to that home in exchange for the cash. But what if the seller did not legally have the right to convey that title to you, to give that title to you? Now, you might think, hey, this is really simple. If this seller's name is on the title, then they can just sign it over to me. Well, there might be some kind of issue where, for whatever reason, that conveyance of the title, them giving you the title, is not legitimate. And, for example, it might have been fraud, right? Maybe there was some kind of fraud or a forged title, or maybe there was some unknown heir, right? Maybe this seller got this house bequeathed to them from an inheritance from someone who passed away, but it was actually supposed to go to this other heir that they couldn't find or they didn't know. There's a million different things can go wrong. There might even be some lien. So this is kind of like an unfiled lien, we'll call it. So somebody had some kind of unpaid debt, and they wanted to file a lien against the house, and maybe they did file it and it didn't go through. There's some kind of issue where someone has a claim against this property, right? Or against this title to this property, right? And you say that when that happens, you say the title is clouded, right? The title has some kind of defect, right? Something where we're not 100% sure that this person has the right to give you title to this house. Now, if it turns out it goes to court and it turns out that this claim is legitimate, right? And let's say they give it to this unknown heir or somebody else, that they get that house, and now you just paid $150,000 for something that you have no title to. And so you don't have a house. So this could be a really big problem. And title insurance, that's where a title insurance company will come in, right? So here's the title insurance company, and they will say, you know what, we'll do an examination. We'll inspect this title. We'll go down to the county courthouse. We'll take a look at the history, and we'll do a good check to see whether this seller has the right to actually convey the title to you. And if you suffer a loss later, if because of some claim or something like that, we'll reimburse for this loss, right? Now, even having said that, it's even just a tad more complicated because there are different types of this reimbursement, right? So one thing is you could reimburse the buyer, right? And in this case, the buyer is you, right? So you purchase this, and they could say, okay, well, I just wanted title insurance for $150,000, right? So that's title insurance for the buyer, the home buyer, right, for the purchase price. But you could also say, well, what about the lender, right? In our example, you're paying the whole purchase price, and we don't have a bank or anything in there. But what about the lender, right? The lender, the bank, they say, well, you know, maybe you don't have, as the buyer, if it turns out there's no clear title, you don't have the money to reimburse the lender, right? So the lender wants their own insurance, right? And the lender is going to want whatever the outstanding loan balance is. Whatever's left to be paid on the loan, that's what the lender is going to want for their policy, right? So you could actually have two different title insurance policies, one for the buyer and one for the lender. And the lenders, typically, they're going to insist that they have a policy in place to protect them, usually, right? And so this is typically required, and it would actually be it'd be a closing cost in the real estate transaction, right? To be a closing cost is that you have to purchase title insurance to protect the lender. So we normally think of buyers and lenders types of title insurance, but there's also, if you have a lease. Now this might seem silly to you if you think of a lease for like a 12-month lease for an apartment, but what about a 40-year lease on commercial real estate, right? Some shopping mall or something, right? So that maybe they pledged that 40-year lease as collateral, and then turns out there's some kind of problem or whatever with the title, and then they're being kicked out of the property. So you could actually have a leasehold policy as a type of title insurance, and then contract buyers title insurance is just if someone buys a home on what's called contract for deed. And contract for deed is basically just you say, I'm going to buy the house and make installment payments. So we'll just say installment basis here. So these are the different types of title insurance, and the cost of title insurance varies widely, right? So it depends on the state. Cost depends on state, and it could be in one state maybe it's $200, and then another state it's $1,200, right? And some people actually complain about price gouging, and so these title insurance companies, for every $100 they get in premiums, they only pay out $3 in actual claims, so they're gouging prices, and you could debate about that. The whole reason that we even have this huge title insurance industry, at least in the United States, I mean, it depends on the country, but in the United States, this is really large industry. Let me change colors here again. So large industry title insurance in the U.S. And the reason is, large industry in the U.S., the reason is that in a lot of the world, when you go to purchase a home or some type of real estate, what you do is there's like a government registration system, or call it a land registration system that's run by the government. A lot of countries do this. And so you go, and when you purchase property, the government's handling this land registration system, and then a government official might say, you know what, we've decided that, based on our registration system, this is the person that owns title to this property, and now we're transferring it to this other person. But in the United States, in most states at least, we do not have a land registration system. What you have is you record the deed. Right now, it'll take place at a government office or something, the county courthouse, but there's no government official making like an official pronouncement saying this is who the title belongs to and so forth, right? So you just record the deed, and then if there's some kind of problem later, that would be litigated in a court. Whereas outside of the United States, a lot of the times it's just determined by this land registration system. And actually, title insurance companies in the U.S. will lobby really hard to keep this system where you record the deed, because they say, you know what, that's actually a lot easier. If we do this land registration system, well then, people could be changed. Government employees or different people could engage in fraud and actually change titles and so forth. So, however you want to look at it, this is the system that we have in the U.S., and so that's why we have title insurance companies to go and inspect the deeds, inspect the history of the title of a home when you're buying a home, and then insure you against any potential defects or problems with the title going forward, so that you and or the lender don't suffer a loss as a result of a defective